Hi guys, my name is Pedram Rossamian, and in this video I'll show you how to edit your day to night time lapses so you have consistent proper white balance, no flicker and no minor vibration or camera shake, just like this time lapse. First I open LRTimelapse. It's a free application, you can download it, and the free version has some limitations but it'll work just fine for the purposes of this video. First, we select our time-lapse folder, which consists of our raw photos of our video, and as we select the folder, LR time-lapse starts to analyze the exposure values of our video. It'll take some time, and then it shows us the exposure value changes throughout our video, and we can play back our time-lapse and see how many flickers we have. I have so many flickers, as you can see, because I changed my shutter speed every 1/3 of a stop, and because of that I have so many flickers, but they're not big ones and I can correct them very easily. And it's okay if you change your shutter speed every one stop, but you have to have a camera that handles higher ISOs better than mine. First, we choose how many keyframes do we need. In this case, I'm gonna go with 7. And then we go to Holy Grail Wizard and play with the sliders till we have the flattest line possible. I just move the sliders till I'm happy with it, and then I save my settings and open Lightroom. Go to the library menu and then drag and drop my images into Lightroom. Just make sure that you have the add highlighted and import your files. Once our images are imported, we go to the bottom right side and change the filter to LRTimelapse keyframes, and then we have our keyframes and we can edit them separately. And I like to first start with one of the middle ones. I start with correcting my angle. That's about right, and then I have to correct my white balance. This photo is taken after sunset, so it's blue hour and my temperature has to be more cooler. So I bring down my temperature and then lower a little bit of my exposure so it's darker and more realistic, adding some contrast, bringing down my highlights and bring up my shadows, also my whites, which works good with skyline photos. And then I can introduce a lot of clarity to my photo, but by increasing clarity we are introducing noise to our image, so we don't want to do that too much. A little bit of dehaze. Now I can change my profile to landscape so we have more contrast and color in our photo. The next setting is tone curve. With choosing the little dot icon, I can click on different exposure value areas of my photos and it'll select it on my tone curve, and then I can adjust my setting to that specific points, which I'm doing now, and adding a little bit more contrast to my photo by doing it. As you can see the before and after. HSO2, we don't need it. In the color grading section, I can add blue to my shadows and add warmth to my highlights. For sharpening, by holding down the option on Mac and the Alt on the Windows, I can see where specifically I'm adding my sharpening to. My ISO is 100, so I don't need much noise reduction, removing chromatic aberration and enable profile correction. And if you have a manual lens that doesn't connect with your camera, you can choose your brand and your model from the menu. Now that I'm done editing, I choose my next two images and sync the setting by DLR time-lapse sync setting. Now I can edit my next image and as you can see it's a little bit after sunset, so it has to be more warm. So I bring up my temperature to adding more warmth to my photo, and by increasing my exposure I'm making it more brighter. What I'm gonna do now is bringing up my whites and bringing down my blacks to adding more contrast to my photo, and adjusting my temperature again. And now I can paste my setting to my next image and editing that. As you can see, the next image is at sunset, so it has to be warm, and I'm bringing up my temperature to achieve that, and adding more whites and bringing down the blacks to adding more contrast. Now that I've done something huge to one slider, I can always come back and change my previous image settings so that I have a smooth transition between photos. And the next thing I'm gonna do is adding a graduated filter at the top and bottom of my photo to making my main subject at the focus. You better use the preset graduated filters that LRTimelapse has already applied to your photo, and they don't have any effects on them, and you can add your adjustments to them. I gonna go with minus exposure and bringing down my highlights, and also do that at the bottom side. Now that I've added a graduated filter, I want to copy and paste it to my next photos. I can use gradient only sync setting that LRTimelapse provides. So I'm only copy and pasting my graduated filter, and I can do that to all my photos that I have edited so far. And once I'm finished, I can go and edit my other photos. We repeat the process, can edit each photo and copy and paste the setting to its next photo and changing the settings and doing our adjustment to our photo. I'm going to speed up the video for you. I'm going to speed up the video for you. When we are done with all of our keyframes, we can go and select all of our photos in library section and go to metadata and save the metadata to files. Now we head back to LRTimelapse and reload our project, and it's reading the metadata that we have just created, and now we can auto transition our project. It'll smoothly transition the setting between keyframes and adjusting to each photo in our project, and then we can visual preview our time lapse, which gonna take some time, and it depends on your project and the system that you're on. And once it finished the processing, we can preview our time lapse, and as you can see, it's really nicely color graded and correctly white balanced throughout the whole time lapse, but we have flickers. And the next setting is visual deflicker, which work is to remove the flickers in our time lapse. In this setting, it's really subjective. You have to see the curve and decide how much deflicker you want to add to your time lapse, and I like to smooth it out as possible, so I go with the highest deflicker, and once it finished its work, you can preview your finished work. And as you can see, we removed all of our flickers, and it's really nicely smooth and correctly white balance and everything. And now we save our project, go to Lightroom, open LR time-lapse full sequence and select all of our photos, Command A or Control A on Windows, and go to metadata and read metadata from files. It will start to read the metadata from LRTimelapse, and then you have all your images ready for export. Now select all your files, go to File, Export, choose a folder and export all of your photos to that specific folder. For next setting, we're going to use image format JPEG and choose 100% quality and then hit export, and it will take so much time. So now that you have all your JPEG photos exported to one folder, you're going to open Adobe After Effects and then creating a new comp. I'm gonna go with Ultra 4K 24 frames per second, and then in project, right click and import multiple files and find your folder that you have just exported your JPEG files into, and then select all your images and then hit import JPEG sequence and then open it. After Effects will create a video from your images, and now you have your time lapse and you can adjust your scale and position. And once you're happy with your transform setting, go to motion tracking section and choose warp stabilizer. Then in your warp stabilizer setting, change the results to no motion because we don't want any motion, and choose the method to position and framing, stabilize and crop. And in advanced setting, go and check the detailed analysis on, and it will take some time, depends on your system. And if you're on a Mac, go to performances and make sure that you have dedicated enough RAM space to your After Effects, and then hit OK. Once After Effects has done with the stabilizing process, go through your video and make sure that you don't have any black spaces on the edges of your video, and if you have, scale your video up till you don't have any black spaces on the edges, and then go to composition, add to render queue and change your format option to Apple ProRes 422 and name your time lapse and export it to wherever you do want. And here's the final result.